Welcome to AutoSuccess Cyber Corner, the podcast for auto dealer cybersecurity. I'm Kyle Alexander, and this is episode 5, Multi-Factor Authentication and Conditional Access.
This podcast is brought to you by Proton Dealership IT. When your team is focused on selling and servicing vehicles, who is focused on keeping your systems secure? With a 24/7 365 operation, Proton can monitor, detect, and respond to potential network or cyber issues. Sleep easy knowing your dealership is covered.
Right now, I'm joined by Sean Patronis. He's the Director of Information Security at Reynolds and Reynolds. I'm also joined by Ken Wolf. He's a security engineer for Reynolds and Reynolds. He also leads some of Proton's instant response teams. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
So let's start off just kind of outlining what this is. What is MFA and conditional access?
Sure. MFA stands for multi-factor authentication, sometimes also known as 2FA. It usually encompasses two of the following three attributes. So one attribute might be something you know, like a password or a passphrase, answers to security questions, a PIN, something that's in your brain. Something you have, some device like a phone or SIM or a security key or a token that you've gotten that's a one-time use, access control badge, something like that. Or it could be part of something you are, a biometric factor such as a fingerprint or a face recognition or a voice print or iris recognition, something like that. Conditional access is a little different. It's when you apply identity-driven signals to access decisions. So it sounds kind of complicated, but really it's pretty simple. So let's say that you log in to your email account from an unknown location. Maybe the system has never seen you log in from California, for example. So they may add a prompt to prompt your account login for MFA, not just using username and password. So let's say somebody tries to log into your account from China, we may be able to block that. So it goes along with when to apply multi-factor authentication, as well when to deny logging in or denying some action. And it's pretty useful in the technology world to prevent misuse of accounts or hackers from getting into your accounts.
Yeah, I know both of these MFA and conditional access are becoming more widely used by lots of different industries. I know myself, I use multi-factor authentication and some conditional access here at my work. But why is this specifically important for car dealers?
Yeah, Sean hit a lot of good points on why. And I'll add that password theft is pretty much a fact of life these days. Whether it's stolen directly from the user via phishing, or if it's disclosed in a data breach, a password is this non-physical digital entity that can be stolen from someone sitting halfway across the world. That same person halfway across the world is going to have a much harder time getting access to your fingerprint, getting access to your phone for an SMS or an app. So it adds a layer of complexity and challenge to breaching accounts. And essentially at that point, an attacker might say, this is too difficult. I'm going to move on to the person who doesn't have MFA. Conditional access, adding that extra layer of intelligence on top of that, where, if we were to block logins entirely from countries where we don't have any business presence, even takes MFA out of the equation. You can't even MFA, you're blocked regardless. And again, just making it that much tougher for them to get you, and they shift targets and move on.
Yeah, I'll add to that a lot of attacks that we've seen lately in the industry are on corporate emails. So your dealership may have your controllers, wiring money transfers and stuff. And a lot of that stuff's done over email. And bad guys will try to hack into email accounts, use known username and passwords that are exposed on the dark web. And if there was no MFA or conditional access, it allows the bad guy an easier path into these email accounts. And then they can get in and start acting like they're the controller and try to redirect payments. It's financial funds fraud or business email compromise. So it's pretty common that we see that in unprotected dealerships, and they may be victim of $50,000 mistransferred funds here, $500,000 there, depending on what they're doing. And it could be incoming or outgoing funds. So it's super important that they apply multi-factor authentication, especially to their emails and other sensitive systems. And if they have the ability to use conditional access, it just makes it that much harder for the bad guys to get in.
So something I kind of want to reiterate with all of this, this obviously ties into password management. So what can dealerships do? Maybe how can dealerships enhance security within their dealership with password management?
Yeah, it goes without saying that passwords are the keys to the kingdom. You hear that phrase a lot. Companies today are under constant threat of attack, whether it's password theft, ransomware, a bunch of other different kinds of attacks. So one of the most basic things you can do to get good security gain in your organization is to have a password management policy. Make sure that you're using different passwords for different accounts. No account has the same password. If one password is breached, it doesn't mean they can use that for the next account, the next account, the next account. One password breached equals one account breached. You take care of it, it's done. Avoid easy to guess passphrases or patterns. In fall, I have to change my password. I'm going to change it to fall 2024. And then in spring, I have to change my password. So it's going to be spring 2025. Making it harder to guess, making sure you don't have any patterns is going to be that much better. As well, consider using, nixing the traditional password concept and using something like a passphrase, which is a longer version of a password and is a phrase that is easy to remember. So instead of using kind of a random string of numbers and letters, let's say, your 8 characters or 7, 8 characters, uppercase, lowercase, bunch of special characters, impossible to remember. That has hundreds of millions, billions, trillions of combinations, which sounds like a lot, but for today's password cracking technology, isn't a lot at all. If you have a passphrase, and so something like something easy to remember, uppercase, lowercase numbers, special characters still, something like static over bags, add a number, add a special character, something easy to remember. That's 16 characters, and the combination, I had to look up the number. These numbers I don't even. It's 30 million, which is a 30 with 30 zeros behind it. So that's the amount of combinations you'd have to guess. It's 1 out of 30 million. And even with today's password cracking technologies, that's going to present a significant challenge to attackers. And again, it's about making yourself a smaller target, so they're going to move on from there. With all that said, you're going to have a bunch of accounts. It's going to be, challenging to maintain that, even if they're passwords that you can remember and passwords that are easy to type out. So we recommend using a password management tool.
Yeah, in my personal life, I have hundreds of passwords that I have to manage because I use these same practices that Ken's mentioned here. So I might have 300 or 400 different passwords for signing up to the grocery store rewards program or using my banking information. Now they're all different passwords, they're all different usernames. So having a password manager is super important. Having a piece of software to help you manage that is very useful. And there's tons of them out there. Some are free, some are paid, and it's super helpful because my password manager uses multi-factor authentication. So I can get into it with a biometric scan of my fingerprint or my face, and then type a password in. And I keep a lot of sensitive information in that manager, which helps me manage all of my other passwords. Unfortunately, it's the world we live in. If bad guys didn't exist, then we wouldn't have to do all this work. But some tools and technologies make it a lot easier, and it helps you keep an inventory of your accounts. Some of these password managers will even check on the dark web for you if that account's ever been breached, and they'll give you notices if they know that they see it in a password list somewhere, or if that password's been used by somebody else, then it'll be in a list that'll say, hey, you should password. So there's other benefits that come with it and some monitoring that comes with it, and there's plenty of good tools out there you can search for.
Using a password manager, I also have hundreds and hundreds of accounts, and they'll auto generate passwords for you, and they'll auto fill in websites. So it's like click, it'll fill it for you. You don't have to type it in. I don't even know 95% of my passwords. It's just a random string of stuff. And I click autofill and it autofills. I know I have passphrases for the ones that I do have to type in regularly. But for a lot of them, it's just a bunch of random stuff, autofills it. If it gets breached, generate a new one, we're done.
I think that is a lot of good information for people to know for, again, MFA and conditional access. Thanks for helping describe all of that stuff here, guys. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.